Hello everyone, and welcome to this continuation of our linear arrays video. So as we discussed before, linear arrays are like a list. So here I have a string array. So if I were to write that in code, I would do string square brackets because that's string array. I'm going to call it words is equal to, and previously how we had initialized this array would be to do new string and pass it a 4. Remember, we can do any number of elements in our array. We're just setting it there. And then we went through each index of words and we stored the value. This can be a useful way to do it, especially if you're using a loop to initialize your array, and we'll go through that in a second. But it can also be a time-consuming way. If you already know all of the things that you want to store in your array, there's an alternate way of indicating your array. So this is method 1. And the second method that we're going to look at is we're still going to have to declare it as a string array. But we're going to be able to go in and directly define the values in that array. So we're going to use the fancy curly braces. We're going to go in and declare our strings. Note that I am writing on the next line because I ran out of space, but you could write it all in one line. So each element is separated by a comma, and we're using those fancy curly braces at the start and end, and that's how we can directly declare, That's how we can directly go ahead and declare our our string array with the values initialized. So we can declare and initialize. Here we can declare and initialize and then fill each element individually. So this creates an empty array. This goes ahead and just creates the array of size 4 with the elements in it. So those are two different ways that we can declare arrays. There's some other crucial things that can be very useful when working with arrays. So one of the key things that we see that we need to use is find out how many elements are in an array. So if we just declared it, we know how many elements are in an array, but sometimes we need to check how many elements are in an array if an array is passed to us or something like that. And the way we can do that is by taking the name of the array, so in this case words, and doing dot length. So words.length is going to return to us the number of elements in words. And the number of elements in words is 4. So you wouldn't actually write, I'll put this in a different color. You wouldn't actually write equals 4. You can't set it that way. But if you call words.length, it will return 4. So you can use that for looping purposes. So for example, we could say for int I equals 0. So starting at the 0 index, I is less than words.length and I plus plus. And this loop, so if we did system.out.print and we printed words at I, what we would see is that it's going to go through and at index 0, so the first element, right, index 0, 1, 2, and 3, it's going to print hello, then it's going to print world, then it's going to print computer, then it's going to print mouse. One thing that I really want to point out about this is that we use less than. We use strictly less than words.length because the size of the array, so this array has a size of 4, is always one more than the last index, and that's because we start counting at 0. So we're never going to access an index at 4, even though the size is 4. So we're always going to access indices up to, but not including the length or the size. And that's what we're doing here when we use strictly less than. And those are some common things you can do with arrays. One of the other ones that's quite helpful is you can, if you, at the top of your code, import java.util.arrays. So that would go right at the top of your file above your class declaration. Then in your code, you could say arrays, spelled exactly like that with a capital A, dot toString. And you can pass it your array. So in this case, we would pass it words. And what that will do is it will print out, or it'll give you the whole array as a string. So if you wanted to say print out all the elements in your array without setting up a loop, then you could do system.out.println and access the arrays.toString words, which would convert the string array. It would convert the string array words into a string, and then you could print it. And that's what you need to know about statically length linear arrays.